Guys, it's Dan from Generation Productions, and we're still on this talk about is Pokemon demonic or evil, and we're still continuing in this thing, and I've already just shown up some ideas of how some of the other ideas were misguided and misbelieved, and now I'm going to actually talk to a more formidable or debatable person by name of one of his videos by name of Christian Truth, or Christian and Truth, pretty much Christian Truth, and his view on the Pokemon being connections to Pokemon and the occult. So I'm gonna jump. I've actually made some dot points of some of the stuff. Some of the dot points here of some of his ideas, and that as well. Some of his main concerns is about the evolution perspective, the old Earth theory, Ghost and the Pokemon Tower, Dark type and God type Pokemon, also known as Legendary type. So let's get into this video with this guy, and I'll go through and explain some of his stuff. And a lot of the stuff with this guy I am going to agree with. Some stuff, yeah, I'll give it a little bit more thought.
Film series in the world, with a total worldwide box office of almost will actively defend the champion. And after
let's get to his theory about evolution.
He or she is beaten, you're the Pokemon champion. Will actively defend Pokemon. They do this in a few ways. One way is by uploading a video of them talking about the issue. The person in the following clip says Pokemon is not Satan's evolution, since Pokemon are repeatedly said to evolve into other Pokemon. But people will actually argue that Pokemon doesn't promote evolution. The extremely popular YouTube channel, The Game Theorists, did a video about how Pokemon doesn't promote evolution. Here's a clip.
And just by looking at the definition, we've already debunked the creationist argument. When a Pokemon evolves in the game, it's a single Pokemon changing forms in that moment, not across generations. A Zubat's mouth hanging open isn't transferring from parent to offspring generation after generation until one day you have a Golbat with a giant yapper.
He's essentially arguing that since the evolution in the Pokemon games isn't the same as the theory you read about in a textbook, that therefore, Pokemon does not promote evolution. He's saying that when a Pokemon evolves, it's really more like metamorphosis. Here's another clip.
For most Pokemon, it could be considered metamorphosis, or an abrupt change in an animal's behavior and body structure. For example, a Weedle turns into a Kakuna and Beedrill in the same way a caterpillar becomes a chrysalis and then a butterfly. This is called holometabolis, or complete metamorphosis, because the immature larval stages look extremely different from the adult form.
So the argument is that Pokemon doesn't promote evolution, because when Pokemon evolve, it's more like a metamorphosis. Although the evolution in Pokemon is analogous to metamorphosis, it still promotes evolution. There are many reasons for this.
And would you like to, Christian Truth, would you like to explain what those many reasons are? Even just do it as dot points so you can explain to the audience what you're talking about. Otherwise, you're just talking crap, my friend.
First, it promotes evolution by way of propaganda, by saying evolution over and over. They could have called it metamorphosis, but they didn't. This has the effect of making everything remind you of evolution, like a blooming flower, or a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. Propaganda doesn't have to make perfect sense.
So, let me get this straight. Because Caterpie evolves into a chrysalis and then evolves into a butterfly, you call that evolution. So, my friend, is or is not the idea of the butterfly or the transition stage, like another, this whole transition stuff, is that to you a form of evolution? If not, that means caterpillars are satanic because they promote evolution because they evolve by doing this kind of rapid evolution. If that is your argument.
For example,
by way of propaganda, by saying evolution over and over. They could have called it metamorphosis, but they didn't. This has the effect of...
Now, the reason why they chose evolution instead of using the actual word metamorphosize or metamorph or morph, full stop, is because, well, first of all, you already had things like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And so the idea of the word metamorphosis or morphing or morphin could have already been trademarked. And also, Pokemon, the Power Rangers also had the problem with when they did Mighty Morphin, a lot of the kids and a lot of the parents were getting the first name mixed up with the word morphine, which is a type of drug. So that is probably another reason why the word metamorphosis, morphing, or morphin was not used. And that's the reason why the other word, evolution, which is also still a transformation, was used. So it made kids understand there was actually a transformation taking place. And since Transformers and Transform has already been copyrighted, yeah, I won't go into all that. But you know what I mean, man.
Making everything remind you of evolution.
Not
like a
necessarily.
blooming flower, or a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. Propaganda doesn't go, it is clear in the game. Propaganda doesn't have to make perfect sense. It often doesn't. It just has to hammer in the agenda. Secondly, this argument fails because the flavor text of certain Pokemon, like Kabuto, push an old Earth mentality. Kabuto's flavor text for Pokemon Crystal says, 300 million years ago, it hid on the seafloor. The fact that some Pokemon in this fictional universe lived 300 million years ago is clear in the game, because in the first generation of Pokemon games, there's a whole side quest of getting a fossil and having a scientist resurrect it. To push an old Earth mentality in a game where everything is repeatedly said to evolve is certainly a promotion of evolution.
No. Again, we got to try and see that this is a game, so therefore it's not having any kind of basis in a reality. And to be honest, that's the way I'd rather prefer evolution and the concept of evolution to actually be. If there is a concept of evolution, why not see it as that it is a part of fantasy, that is part of pop culture, as part of fantasy. The fact of stating that a fossil is millions of years old in the Pokemon verse also could be, yeah, true, because again, this is another alternate universe. This is not our reality. This is not our state of being. This is not our thing. So the game, the Earth could be millions of years old, you know, instead of the thousands. Again, that's also another thing too. The Pokemon world could technically be older because it's in a different universe or a different time or a different thing. But even then, I don't even know why we're even discussing this, because it's not even real anyway. So why are you trying to apply real life principles into a game which is basically a game which, technically speaking, nothing real actually applies to the real world anyway? Oh boy.
To say otherwise is ridiculous.
Not necessarily.
Evolution's a false theory that's actually disproven by science. See the video. Amazing Evidence for God.
Yes, and I agree. Evolution, the typical form of evolution of like a lizard to evolving from a fish, or so should I say, a fish evolving into a reptile, evolving into a dinosaur, and then a dinosaur evolving into a bird. Yes, I do agree. That version of evolution, I do 100% agree is absolutely false and is complete and utter crap. I do completely agree with you. But that's not what the Pokemon universe versions are talking about. Their version of evolution, again, as stated by many people who are Pokemon fans, including myself, clearly state that, as you said back here when we were talking about this whole evolving thing, it's all about like say this Charmeleon starts to evolve.
Is analogous to metamorphosis.
Evolve and turns into the Charizard. Again,
evolution by way of
okay, yes, you could consider maybe the dragon, Charizard there looking a bit demonic with the horns and the wings and the red colour and the flame tail. Alright, I'll grant you that. But then again, also in saying that, dragons are also a part of pop culture. So therefore, you can't really say that it's actually a demon or anything like that, because it's part of like the dragon concept and a part of the dragon culture. And not all dragons are tied into supernatural things. It is even stated that maybe dinosaurs were actually misinterpreted as being dragons. So therefore, your whole theory about that is thrown out the window.
Propaganda.
Anyway.
Generation of Pokemon games. Although Pokemon promotes evolution, it also has things like ghosts in its fantasy world. I think this mix of ghosts and evolution intrigue people, because in the real world, they like the implications of evolution. The implication that morality isn't that important. Yet, at the same time, they like the idea of ghosts and channeling dark powers.
I 100% agree with you on that one. As humans, we have fallen nature, and the fallen nature clearly states that we have the dark side of us in us from the fall of Adam and Eve. And even if you don't agree with the biblical account of how the darkness came into the world through Satan and Adam and Eve screwing up, there is also the point, yes, in human nature, whether you believe it's by natural processes or by God and Satan and that, the human nature does seek out darkness. The human heart and the human being does choose to seek out darkness. But let's talk about the ghost type Pokemon. As I've already stated in many videos, the ghost type, actually I'll bring that up for a second. The few different types that we should worry about, and what any parent should be worrying about, are these types of Pokemon. The dark type, as you're about to go into, but we'll get there. The psychic type, and the ghost type, and of course the Ultra Beast type. These Pokemon, I do 100% agree, seem to show a lot more demonic side of Pokemon, and more demon orientated with some of their abilities. And I believe we're about to go into that, so I won't go too far into that. But I do 100% agree with you. These types of Pokemon, I'm swinging the thing around. That's not what I had in mind. Excuse me, people. These kind of Pokemon, Dark, Psychic, Ghost, and Ultra Beasts, these Pokemon should be avoided. Or, if they are captured to register in the Pokédex, release them, or send them to a Pokemon box and call it hell, and then trap them there and never use them again. That is my theory that kids should actually do if they are playing the game.
We see ghosts in the first generation of Pokemon. By the way, multiple games, the implications of evolution. The implication that morality isn't that important. Yet, at the same time, they like the idea of ghosts and channeling dark powers. We see ghosts in the first generation of Pokemon games. By the way, Pokemon games go in generations. Each generation will have multiple games that are only slightly different.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, with each different iteration of the Pokemon series, they actually tie into one another. If you actually played Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, they actually tie in to Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal, such as mentioning a red Gyarados and stuff like that. Some of these, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, tie into the original Pokemon games. So there is a bit of a connection there. They actually tie into one another, and each generation actually ties into each other. So it's kind of like a really strange timeline, I do agree, but what can you do about it?
But these games are in the same generation, because they all draw from the same pool of Pokemon.
Yeah.
A new generation of games adds a new pool of Pokemon. In the first generation of Pokemon, there were 151 Pokemon. 3 of these Pokemon were typed as ghosts. Gengar was the strongest of the ghosts. And, it's interesting, we see Gengar, the ghost, In the opening animation of Pokémon Red and Blue, the games that
and the game, and the TV series, and the comics. Yeah, I do. I understand that.
In the first generation, there's a part of the story where your character has to go in the Pokémon Tower.
Yeah, but before we get there, back to Gengar. He is also a ghost type. Again, ghost type Pokemon are not good. So we've already established that even though Gengar was the most powerfulest of the... let's flip back here for a second. Even though we do agree that Gengar was the strongest ghost type in the original Generation 1, 2, maybe 3 games, Gengar was one of the powerful ghost Pokemon. But again, as we know, we should stay away from the ghost type.
In the opening animation of Pokemon Red and Blue.
Anyway, now
people go to remember to go in the Pokemon Tower.
Now, Pokemon Tower. Yes, I 100% agree with this. I 100% agree with this, people. Once you've played through that mission where you have to go through the tower, the tower, do not let your children or anyone else go back to that level, that part of the game again. Reasons being is that the Pokemon Tower, which appears, I think, in Generations 1, 2, and 3, I think there may have been some other places as well, like Pokemon cemeteries and stuff like that. They do have ghost Pokemon. Again, like I said, once the challenges of these areas are completed within the game to progress forward, I suggest not going back nowhere near them, because basically the ghost type areas, such as the towers and stuff like that, are not really cool places, as we're about to launch into from the Generation 1 game, which I still feel queasy about, and I don't like it. I don't like that area, full stop, but let's get into it.
The Pokemon Tower is where people go to remember dead Pokemon. Here, your character has to battle channelers.
Oh, by the way, actually I did kill a Pokemon one time, but I'll probably mention that later on.
Or people who channel spirits.
Now, about these guys, the channelers. Yes, these channelers are Pokemon trainers who believe in basically conjuring up the dead spirits of dead Pokemon, and also train with ghost Pokemon. So I don't like these guys. I absolutely don't like them at all. And even I'm not sure if I don't know if he's got that caption. Pretty sure he should have it here. Just give me a second.
Here, your character has to...
Just wait a minute. Sorry about this, people. Where is it? Yeah. When you talk to these guys, they start going through possession. A demonic possession. Well, I suppose you could call it demonic, but a possession, whether it's demonic, doesn't really matter. It's still a possession. These channelers get possessed by a ghost Pokemon. Now, the ghost Pokemon they get possessed by is called Marowak. Of course, though, you don't know that at the time until you get a little device from Silphco, which is like a scanner that can scan invisible objects. But yeah, eventually you get this. There's this ghost Marowak, which is going around possessing the humans in the tower, and your idea is to actually knock them out or beat them to get rid of that ghost, or get rid of that demon, well, not demon, I suppose you could call it demon, or ghost Pokemon that's possessing the channelers. So again, I don't like the tower, and to be honest, like I said, with kids, parents, teenagers, if you ever go through that tower or cemetery or wherever it is in the games, I suggest you get out of there pretty bloody quick, capture the Pokemon you need, and then once you've caught them, leveled them up, and basically had them register the Pokedex, release them, or stick them in a box, in the Pokemon box, and name it Hell, and shove them in Hell. Because they're not very good. And again, like I said, with the channelers, I don't like these characters whatsoever. They are in some of the generations where it comes to the cemeteries and the ghost, or just the Pokemon towers. I don't like these people. I don't like these characters. So, and also, let's move on.
Psychics, seances, and occult practices are condemned in the Bible.
Yeah. How much?
Go not aside after wizards, neither ask anything of soothsayers, to be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God.
Yeah, true. Again, like I said, I don't like these characters either, so we both agree on that.
There are also psychics you battle in the game. The gym leader, Sabrina, even says, I have had psychic powers since I was a child. Here, we see the dark spiritual element of Pokemon, but as we continue, it gets darker.
Well, again, agreed. I don't like psychic trainers, full stop. Sabrina being one of them. And, yeah, all that stuff as well. So, yes, again, let's go back there. Yeah, there he is. Don't know if I can jump ahead a bit. There we go. Psychic trainers, yes, I don't like them either. I'm not a fan of the psychic trainers or Sabrina. I'm not a fan of those guys. I'm not, like I said, again, I think that's what I'm saying. Once that challenge has been defeated, never go back to that gym again. That's simple enough. Once you've battled that Pokemon and battled that trainer, never have anything to do with them again. Never backtrack. Never go back to that gym.
You battle in the game. The gym leader, Sabrina, even says, Pokemon have what's called types. They introduced the dark type Pokemon since I was a child. Pokemon. Pokemon have what...
Okay, now we're talking about the dark type. And as you can see here with Houndoom, we have this thing. And it actually kind of fits in with the Greek mythology about the dogs that would guard hell. I can't remember what his name is right now. But yeah, it kind of looks like something like that. Again, agreed. The dark type, again, not a fan of. Ghost, dark, and some of those other types are not good. So I 100% agree with you with that. That they're the types that once they've been registered in the Pokédex, once you've caught them, you should release them, or stick them in a box called Hell and not have anything to do with them again. Simple enough.
What's called types in the game. Types are properties for Pokemon and their moves. So, for instance...
Okay, so we are talking about Pokemon types. Now, I'll just zoom out here for a second. So, yes, we again, some of the good types are the normal, grass, water, flying, fighting, ground, rock, bug, electric, ice, dragon, steel, fairy, food, slug, plastic, wind, crystal, and light. Those are the good types. The bad types, as I've already stated, would be the Ultra Beast, Ghost, Psychic, and maybe even Poison might fit into that, but I think that's a loose one. But Ghost, Dark, Psychic are not good Pokemon and should never really be used in the Pokemon game by kids or anything. If you're a Christian, if you're not a Christian, it shouldn't bother you. But if you are a Christian person, again, I couldn't specify more. That is the issue. What else we got? Again, Google up Pokemon entries and actually select the ones from the game, and you can see that those things are really, really weird. And they're the Pokemon that you should try to avoid. Or if you do get them registered in the Pokédex, release them straight away, or stick them in a box called Hell and send them to Hell. That's where they should be. Anyway, back to the whole thing. Where are we?
Squirtle is a water type, and Bulbasaur is a dual type grass poison Pokemon. In the first generation...
Oh, and while we're talking about these kind of things, the Bible, even God himself in Genesis 26 to 27, he says, then God said he created man in his own image, and then he created all the flesh of the sea, the birds of the air, livestock, and everything of the earth. So even God himself has types of animals, like the birds are the birds of the air. The fish are of water, and of course us and other animals are on the land. It says there, on the earth itself, everything is creeping upon the earth. So, in saying that, even God himself, for real animals, mind you, real animals, not just these fiction monsters, God also created them in a category. Even before the Latin and the scientists come up with it, God came up with it first about putting animals into types, even before Pokemon did it. Okay, people, well, this video is running a little bit short, so I'm going to do a part 2 about this Christian guy. Okay, bye guys.